Hey, welcome back. So, why structure matters? Let's take this short little lesson, right? I have an opening hook, I have 3 points, and I have a closing clincher, and I have it right here in front of me to review if I need to. So, once you have a structure, the speaking, the delivery becomes so much easier because you can stay in your lane because you're constantly reminded because you have a clear structure. Okay, so let's start. Let's say you're going on a trip and you don't have Google Maps or Apple Maps or even any maps at all. You're going to meander and you're going to wander. All right. You get to your destination, you made a few backtracks, whatever. No one is the wiser. However, you do that in front of an audience and you backtrack and you meander, it's sort of cringy. They're going to forget your message. And what was the point of you speaking anyway? Were you trying to be persuasive or informative? You wanted to move someone along? It's all going to be lost because you didn't have the structure to stay in your lane and you meandered. All right. So the next one is structure is comforting for the audience. When you're reading a paper and you misunderstand something or you don't follow something, you just go back and you reread it. Heck, maybe you AI it or Google it and you look up something, right? That's not the case in speaking. The audience does not have that ability to pause you and go back, right? So they are paying attention more readily than they might have to if they're reading a book. And so what that means is it's up to you to give them that comfort via structure. You have an opening. You state, I have 3 points. I'm going to talk about A, B, and C. Right now that I finished talking about A, I'm moving to B. Those are guideposts. Those are structure. It's very comforting for the audience. They'll always know what's going on, and it'll be a much more impactful speech. Real quick, there's something called primacy recency effect, and so we tend to remember primacy prime the most recent, the first thing someone says, and in recency, the most recent thing they say. So it's this bell curve. And we sort of forget. And then boom, remember the last thing the person says. When you have a solid structure with guideposts, you help flatten that bell curve so people remember more of what you said and they are able to follow along with you. All right, the last thing is structure gives you confidence. So let's take Obama was a real good speaker. And what he was famous for when he was practicing is that he didn't practice every line. He didn't focus on the exact things he was going to say. He practiced on his structure and his outline, right? So he knew that he was going to have some opening about whatever. He knew he was going to have 3 points and maybe two sub points for each one. He knew what those were. And then he just worked on that and he had his structure down pat, gave him the freedom to be able to read off the audience a little bit and deliver his content in a way that was either a little bit grander or a little bit tighter, depending on what the situation was, the rhetorical situation we talked about earlier. So those are the important reasons for structure. With a great structure, you will have a more impactful speech. Just remember, structure isn't a cage. It allows you the freedom. It's a launching pad to give a better speech. Now I'm going to talk about no, you don't want to open up like that, right? Imagine a meeting, a speech, somebody's like, today I'm going to talk to you about. No, you don't want to do it. The first couple seconds are golden real estate, and you want to be able to grab the audience attention immediately. You only have a few seconds, right? To set them off or have them lean in. So you want to take advantage of it. Here's three quick things that you can do. One is a shocking statistic, right? Here's one. Americans spend more money on lottery tickets every year than books, sports, and movies combined. All right, that's sort of interesting. What are the numbers, right? Where are you gonna go with this? That's an interesting hook. You got me. I'm interested. Another one is a mini story, right? A guy returned a library book 54 years late for a late fee of $3,000. All right, well, that's interesting. Why did he return it? Did he pay the fee? Did they really expect to get the fee? Right? These are all things that we're going to lean into as an audience, and we're going to be interested, and you're going to feel it as the speaker. Another one is ask an audience question. This is a really good way to get the audience engaged and involved. And so you have to guide them. You can't open some open-ended question, right? So a question like raise your hand if you're about to go on a walk and you realize your phone battery is dead. Would you delay your walk or go on your walk without your phone? Right? And you ask them to, raise the hand, one or the other. That gets the audience engaged right away. That little tiny bit of golden real estate, you just took advantage of it and they leaned in and they didn't lean out. So you have to make this matter. You have to ask what is in it for them. Why should they care about your topic? And you can always make something relatable. It's really interesting if you just take a few minutes and say, this is what I'm talking about. Is this something that relates to them? You can definitely make it relatable. We'll talk about that later. So an example here is a doctor on health, right? It's a doctor. It's instant credibility. People tend to listen. A student on finals, right? That's a lived experience. Plus, they're related to that. It's something they're credible for. So those are things we might lean into because of those two things together. So you want to set the roadmap right off the bat, and you want to end your introduction with one clear preview. Here's an example I have. In the next few minutes, I'm going to show you 3 ways to make your introductions impossible to ignore. All right, what's the power of that? Well, I just said in the next few minutes, right? Few minutes, that's not much investment of your time. Everybody's like, I got it. I can give you a couple minutes, right? Plus now I know where you're going, right? The speaker's going to give me 3 things. When he says 1, I know there's 2 to go. When he says 2, I'm like, hey, I only got 1 more to go, right? So people are going to be engaged. They're going to listen because it's not an open end where they don't know where it's going. They don't know where it's going to end. All right. So just remember, a strong introduction doesn't just start your talk. It decides if the audience is going to stay for the rest of your talk. All right. One of the quickest ways to lose the audience is to start talking without knowing what you want them to walk away with. All right. Here's an example. All right. A clam, a shark, and an octopus. They're given a talk. What's wrong with their speech? There's no porpoise. I'll be here all week. Thank you. You have to have a purpose. A purpose equals an outcome. A purpose isn't the topic, it's the outcome of the topic of your speech. Ask yourself, when I finish, what do I want them to know, think, feel, or do? All right. So let's do an example of a weak and then a strong. A weak purpose. I'm going to talk about recycling because it's important. I've had this so many times in-person courses when they do public speaking. People often do the environment, and it's just generic thing like that. All right, I'm going to talk about recycling because it's important. All right, fine, it may be important, but I don't know what my purpose is. Sorry, had to go back. All right, a stronger one is by the end of this talk, you will know 3 ways you can start reducing waste today. It's immediate and it's useful and it's a clear purpose. I won't say purpose anymore. Well, I don't know. I might. All right. So you want to respect their time. Why? Well, there's this thing about audiences. They're prisoners, right? To some extent, they don't leave. Even if it's something they pay to go to a TED talk and they listen, they're not going to get up and walk out, right? For the most part, it would be rude, to be uncomfortable. People don't do it. For the most part, we're kind of stuck, right? You can be in a classroom. Well, you kind of have to be there. You got to get your grade, you got to get your certificate, whatever it may be, right? So an audience is a prisoner, and so you need to respect their time. And so the purpose is saying, I respect your time and I respect the attention you're going to give me. So I'm going to tell you right off the bat what you're going to walk away with. All right. So purpose is your promise. Without it, you're just filling time, and with it, you're earning trust and attention. So make sure you have a purpose. Hey, audience awareness. It's like data, studying data. All right. So when you see heads nodding, people leaning in, eyes darting away, or people scrolling your phone, that's live data coming at you. Speakers use it. Tough to say. Smart speakers use it. Average speakers miss it or ignore it. So let's step back before we go on. And I want to remind you of something. Speaking is not just with a giant TED behind you, a TED talk, right? You're going to do the most common kind of speaking you're going to do is impromptu speaking. We're just going to come up, right? And those are impactful moments for you to propel your message, your ideology, whatever it may be, right? But you're going to be speaking at meetings. So those kind of things, impromptu and speaking at a meeting, are going to be way more common than you're going to be on a stage with a TED talk. And so let's just keep that in mind when we talk about audience awareness. It's not just 200 people out in the audience. It's the 7 people around the conference room table also. All right. So now let's move on. So why does audience awareness matter? Every audience has a mix of beliefs, values, attitudes, the moment they walked in the door, what the venue is, what the place is, whatever it may be. There's just this wild mix of these elements. And so you have to be aware of them. If you don't adapt, you risk losing them back to real-time data coming back and forth. So let's use an example. Let's say you're giving a speech on the pros and cons of gaming, video gaming, right? If you're going to speak to fifth graders, you're going to speak differently, right? You're probably going to like maybe bend down, lean in. You're going to use simpler words, right? Or if you're going to speak to adults, you're going to speak differently. It's not just your mannerisms and your delivery style. It's going to be the content, right? The types of words to use, the length of a sentence, the complexity of a sentence or a paragraph. All these things are going to change. So this is just an example to say, I need to be aware of my audience, because if you're speaking to the fifth graders and they're like lost or looking around, right? You need to adapt. Same way if you're speaking to adults or you're speaking to, some kind of middle ground where it's, college students, or it's at your place of employment and there's a mix of all different generations. You have to realize that. You have to be audience aware and plan ahead, fine. But as the data comes into you, they're on their phone scrolling or whatever it may be, you need to adapt on the fly. So one of the strategies is finding common ground. So in Lincoln's Gettysburg Address, he used the term when he referred to post-war is unfinished work. And he did that because that was finding common ground. That wasn't picking a side. It was this very accurate statement, but it was also nebulous on who it related to. It was unfinished work. Everything sucks. We got to get back together, right? And so you always want to seek common ground, because there's in persuasion is something called the unity principle. It's really powerful, right? Once we feel like we belong to a certain group, we tend to listen to that group, right? We tend to think that everything's smarter. We're more open. And so the unity principle, if you find common ground where we're all on the same page for this, you're going to have more of a buy-in, and your audience is going to lean into you and listen more. So listen for feedback, read the room, and adjust your pace, your tone, and your content on the spot. If you realize you're going too technical, back off, right? And then be more conceptual maybe, or generic. All right, so always ask, some practical questions. Who are they? Why are they here? And what do they care about? So let's say you're giving a pitch or a presentation to a particular client. You kind of want to be aware of what's going on with that audience. And the reason I'm using this example is sometimes when you're speaking to a prospective client, they just want to know a result. What are you going to do for me? Right. But another type of client, right, they might want to be really dialed in. What is the timeline? What is A? When is B? When is C? Right. And so you want to realize that. So if you're going to be talking to that first client that wants to know, what are you doing? That's it. What's the end result? What are you doing for me? And you're talking about timelines in every detail. You're not giving that audience what they want, and you're going to miss them. So remember, when you shape your message around your audience, it becomes more than you being heard. It becomes you getting remembered. All right, building the body of your message. All right, if your talk has too much middle, right, it's like cramming groceries into one bag. It eventually breaks and it spills, right? We talked about primacy and recency. It's too much stuff. They're going to get lost. They're not going to remember it, right? You're going to feel it. It's going to be terrible speech. So build the body. Make sure it's clean and concise. All right. So one thing, keep it to 3 points. 3 points is distinct and balanced. You can have a sub point in for those 3 points, but keep it to 3 points. Why do TED Talks, right, stick? Like, why did the messaging stick? Why do they go viral? It's because they're structured very strictly, and it's 3 main points that you have to stick to. Plus, they have a time constraint and some other things, but they stick to 3 main points. Real quick side note: there's many psychological studies about human communication and how we react, and we are very comforting by 3 points. We like 3 points. It's throughout history we have 3 points, right? Stories written in movies, have 3 acts. It's a very common thing. Books have 3 acts. It's a very common thing. We like it. It's comforting. Stick to 3 points. All right. Another thing is that we want to do is you're supporting evidence. Don't just use fact point 1, fact point 2, fact point 3. Mix it up a little bit. Deliver whatever your messaging is in a variety of ways. One is a story, a personal win or fail, right? That's something that people engage with. Another is a statistic, right? When I talk about persuasion in my persuasion course and classes, I'll often use, many stories about actual studies, research that was interacting with people, and they really stick. They're meaningful. They engage people, and they illustrate what the point is in a very clear manner. So another thing is lean on experts as another way to get one of your points across. According to and quote some kind of expert on something, because now that credibility, you've just attached it to yourself. And so you're riding the coattails of somebody else who may be more known in the field or that sort of thing. Another thing is transitions, right? We talked about the fact that they're not reading a paper or watching a documentary. They can go back and forth, whatever. That's it. Whatever you say is all they got. So give them guidepost, right? Gives them some sort of transition from point one to point two. Here's an example. Now that we looked at fear, let's shift to confidence, right? So whatever that speech is about, right? I just talked about point one. Now I'm going to talk about point two. We're going to take the audience with us. So remember, when your body is clear and it's supported and connected, your audience never really feels lost, but they feel carried. All right, conclusions and clinchers. Your conclusion is how you wrap it up. Your clincher is one powerful line, so they're going to walk away and remember it. So think about the last Zoom call where somebody wrapped up with, so yeah, that's it. You feel the energy collapse, right? The conclusions should lift, not deflate. That could actually remove anything great that happened in the meeting. So yeah, that's it, right? Come up with a way to have a sharp clincher, bam, and end it. All right, so what you want to do is you want to restate your thesis, whatever your main point is. Remember the whole purpose, right? You want to have a clear thesis. We've seen today that structure isn't optional. It's the backbone of speaking, right? So that would be a way to kick off your conclusion. That's what you've talked about. You said it, you rephrased it in a new way. So you want to do a quick sweep and summarize your points from your opening to your transitions, whatever. You want to just summarize what you talked about. Short, clear, and fast. Keep it short, clear, and fast. All right. You can use, there's a number of ways that you can help with the conclusion, and specifically a clincher. You can use a quote. Here's one from Yo-Yo Ma. The human voice is the most powerful instrument. That's with your clincher. That's how you leave whatever your speech was. You can do a call to action. Your next audience is waiting. Step up and speak. Call to action. That's how you're in speech. You're done. And another real powerful way and comforting way for an audience is circular ending, or what I call bookends. So if you start with something like earlier, I talked about using GPS, Google Maps, GPS as a way to say you got to have speech structure. So if you open with a Google Maps analogy, end with the Google Maps analogy in a different manner, but the same, metaphor, the same analogy. So what happens is it's comforting. I remember now what you said, and now I'm connecting all these things in the middle. So it's real powerful. So remember, a strong close isn't the end of your talk. It's the start of their action.